Okay, so hello, doctor. What do you like to go by?
Lakara is fine.
Car is fine. Okay. So we are back for yet another episode of Let's Switch Gears. And this episode, we have Dr. Lakara Foster. She's an author, she's a psychic medium, she is a licensed minister. Let me know if I'm forgetting anything.
I'm a
A spiritual
pastor.
teacher, a pastor,
Mhm,
pastor.
mhm.
Yes, yes, yes. And among many other things, I'm sure. Yeah. So, hello. How are you feeling? How are you doing
I,
today?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I am good. Thank you for coming on the show. I'm really
Absolutely.
excited. Really excited for this conversation. So do you want to do like a little introduction for yourself for people who may not be familiar with you or your work?
Yeah, that's fine. So again, I am Dr. Lakara Foster. I am a psychic medium, a pastor, and as you said, an author. I am right here in the city of Atlanta, Georgia. I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, so I still call that home as
Okay.
well. And I am loving the work that I get to do in the way of helping people with mostly like healing their grief, right? Connecting them with their loved ones who have departed and bringing messages from the other sides for people who need healing, closure, and peace.
Mhm. It's funny. I feel like I'm meeting so many people from New Orleans because on a previous episode, I one of the guests was also from New Orleans and she's an astrologer.
Oh,
So would you say that's kind of where your spiritual upbringing started in New Orleans?
absolutely. And it's so interesting because it's like growing up there, you don't realize that there's such a contrast until you leave. And so I didn't
Mhm.
realize the contrast until I went away to college at Florida A&M University. And then from there moved to Atlanta. And so being from New Orleans, like you said, you met the astrologer, right? You'll meet the tarot reader, you'll meet the medium. And these are just kind of really everyday people, right? This could be your cousin, this could be your aunt, this could be whomever. And so I had, aunts that were readers as well, if you will. So it's kind of all
Okay.
weaved through my family
Okay.
and in the culture. So it was something I remember as a kid, even without having the knowledge of being a psychic medium or the words or the vocabulary. Whenever we would visit the French quarters and I would see like the people sitting at the tables, like doing readings, and I would be like, oh my gosh, I just want to do that one day, right? So without even
Mhm.
knowing that, like that was kind of all coming together, if you will.
Yeah. So I know I was reading up a little bit on your background, and you said that growing up, you didn't realize that the gifts that you have now were considered gifts because you just assumed that everyone around you was also experiencing these things. What
Yeah.
were some of the things that you were experiencing, and when did you realize, oh, like I might be a little different?
So as a kid, and I've said this before in interviews, I would sense the presence of spirit ever since I was about 3 years old. And I would read the obituaries, and in the obituaries, of course, I would know, the person's name, their age when they passed, all these things. But like I would know how they passed, right? Or I would know certain things that weren't listed. And so it would just kind of be like this thing, if you will, that I
Mhm.
didn't realize was a thing until I got older and I went to school, and this presence of spirit is always with us, so it's not just with me. It's just a gift that I have to be able to tap into the energy, which I think to some degree we all can. And so yeah, so ever since I was a kid, I've always I can look back now and recognize like, oh, this is what that was, or this is what I was experiencing, or this is why I knew certain things.
Mm. Was like your family and friends, were they, I know you said you had like family that was also involved in that stuff growing up, but like even in high school or like you said when you went away to college, were the people that you had around you, were they very like supportive of that, or were they kind of like
It
thrown
was
off a little?
in
Yeah.
school, it wasn't like I didn't really practice, right, as much.
Mhm.
Like I'm a practicing medium now, right? This is like my full-time profession. In school, it would just kind of be like I would get a hit about something and I might tell a friend something, but it was never a thing, right? It was never like a sit down and do a reading type thing. It would just
Mhm.
be I would kind of get these, I don't know, these insights to things. And so I would share. So it wasn't until I probably was about, I don't know, maybe 25 or so when I really began to kind of like, okay, what is this? Right. And I could
Yeah.
actually sit down with someone and give them a whole list of things. So it kind of evolved over the years.
So there was never any like instances where you knew something and maybe that, like the average person wouldn't know, and maybe like your friend was like maybe a little curious, like, how do
Well,
you,
absolutely. So
yeah.
I just one instance where it was kind of like when I realized that not everyone was having the same experience. I was a freshman in college, and one of the our dorm mates, she was grieving the loss of her aunt who had recently passed. And it was like I could feel the presence of spirit and see, not with my physical eye, of course, but with my mind's eye, like, okay, spirit, the aunt is here. She has this red dress on that she's talking about. And she wants to bring up the fact that she didn't like the fact that she was buried in this red dress and all of these things and things about the family that, I wouldn't know because this was somebody that I was just meeting. And so one day we were in the room and I was just like, hey girl, let me ask you something, right? And I just started asking her, and I'm like, yeah, I was like, did you all bury your aunt in a red dress? And she's like, yeah, like, how do you know that? And I'm like, well, like the spirit has been with me for a while, and your aunt just wants you to know, like, she's well and she loves you and she's so proud of you and all of these things. I said, and she hated the red dress, right? And so she's like, oh my God, like I knew it, I kept telling my family like it was a horrible pick, right? So I was like, oh yeah, like your aunt is confirming, like horrible pick, right? So and then she's like, how are you doing this? And I'm like, at the time, I didn't really have the language for it, right? I didn't know what a medium was at the
Mm,
time. And so I'm just like, I don't know, like, I'm just able to know certain things. And so like, like now I can tap into that energy and do every day, right? Because this is, again, my profession. Then it would just kind of be like very random and rare, right? But the medium part, but the psychic part would kind of happen all the time.
okay. There's a difference between a psychic and a medium. Could you
Yes.
explain the difference for people who may not know?
Yes. So the term psychic is very umbrella, if you will, right? It's a
Hmm.
very umbrella term, which kind of it can encompass, clairvoyance and clairsentience and clairaudience and all of these different clairs. Medium it falls under that umbrella, right? So we'll say like all mediums are psychic, but all psychics are not medium. So the mediumship
Mm.
abilities allow you to connect to other realms, if you will, right? Loved ones who have passed on, again, to see if they're bringing any messages through.
Okay. And you said you see all of this through your mind's eye, which is essentially like your third eye, basically, right?
Yeah, like the third eye and other ways that I can experience it through like the paraphysical senses, right? That's what they're called. So it's like I can hear things, but I'm not audibly hearing them. I can see things, but I'm not physically seeing them. I can taste things, but I'm not actually tasting things, if you will. So it's kind of a parasense, if you will, a paraphysical sense.
Okay. So it's kind of like you're seeing, I guess it would require kind of a sense of imagination, basically, because you're seeing these things, but like you said, you're not actually seeing them in front of you, but you can see it
Right,
play out in front of you. Yeah.
right,
Okay.
right.
Got
Yeah.
it.
And so then it's just kind of like just being a vessel for that. And so just kind of like, again, if you say like imagination, just kind of like letting it just run, And like yesterday I'm on a reading and I hear in my mind, you know what I mean? I can hear like the word or the name Philip. And I'm like, do you connect to a Philip? And the lady's just like, oh my gosh, like that is my friend's last name. Her last name was Phillips. So
Mm.
she's like, how did you know this? And I'm like, I can hear it, but I can't hear it if that makes sense.
Okay. I
Yeah.
see. So when did you take me on like a journey of when you discovered this gift and really decided that you should lean into it as opposed to try to reject it? Like, was there ever a point where you felt like this isn't what I want to do? Or was it always something that you were just happy to really dive into?
I it really wasn't until I started watching the Long Island Medium back in like whenever that came out. I think it was like, I don't know, 2007 or so, maybe a little
Yeah.
bit later than that, that I thought like, oh wow, I have this gift, right? And I'm like, and she's doing this as a profession? Like this is interesting, right?
Yeah.
And I remember telling my friend at the time, like, "Oh, if I could do readings all day, like that is what I would do. I'd just do readings all day." Not really knowing that that could actually be a possibility, right? So I was never, not open to the idea or the possibility of using this gift on the full-time basis for sure. Um, so yeah, it was in about 2017. I worked in the school system for a very long time and I got laid off in 2012, just kind of like navigating, trying to find my way. and still kind of, kind of had these side gigs. I think I like took on real estate and was a
Oh, okay.
professor at a university and all of these different things. And so I was in New Orleans one day and I was getting a tarot card reading, and the woman said, she says, listen, I don't know what this spiritual gift is that you have, but it's the only thing that God's going to support you doing.
Mm.
And for me, it was just like, well, like that's it, right? Like
Yeah,
this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to lean completely into this gift, and that's what I did.
yeah. So you identify as a Christian, right?
Yes.
Yes. And you are also a psychic medium. Those are obviously two very different spiritual paths that you've been able to seamlessly blend together. But as we all know, when it comes to things like tarot readers, astrologers, psychics, mediums, that's been something that the church has been very adamant on rejecting. Like they haven't had the best relationship with each other because it's been considered like witchcraft, technically.
Right. Mhm.
So, how have you been able to navigate these two very different um, areas and bring them together? And
Yeah.
how have you also been able to deal with the challenges of maybe some skepticism or people saying, this isn't real or you're faking or
Yeah.
you're channeling something maybe negative or demonic? Like how do
Yeah.
you navigate that?
Yeah. So I think to answer the first part of the question is that I believe one is to understand that they're more intertwined than people would want to admit, right?
Okay.
In terms of if we say Christianity and spiritual work, right? Because we could look all through the Bible and see how it was all the same, right? We could look at gosh, why is his name Joseph? Who was, chosen to interpret dreams for Pharaoh, right?
Hmm.
We could look at Jesus, who, was on the mountain talking to Moses and Joshua, and they had passed hundreds of years before, which is mediumship, right? Which the Bible is talking about the great cloud of witnesses, right? And that is the loved ones or the ancestors that have gone on before us. And we can look at the scripture James 1:17, where it says every good and perfect gift is from above, right? So we have all of these gifts, and they come from God, right? Or the source or expanded consciousness or whatever it is that we want to call that. And so I think that even as African people, we would have to look at why are people saying that we should not use these gifts, right?
Hmm.
Why is it a thing, right? And so when I did my doctoral work, of course, I looked at it from a biblical sense, if you would, to see why is it not okay for me to use this gift and be a Christian? And so I was able to do a deep dive on understanding, like, oh, this is who King James was, right? And King James had a fascination for witches, and his mother had a fascination for witches, but the witches did not like King James, right? And they did not want him coming over to the country where they were because they knew, what he was all about. And so they hexed his boat. And so,
Hmm.
it kept preventing him from coming over. And they admitted that they hexed his boat. So when he got an opportunity from 1604 to 1611 to write his version of the Bible, of course, he would lump, all of these people into one category to say, hey, y'all don't fool with witches or mediums or psychics or any of these people because they're bad people. But this is why, right? And so we
Yeah.
don't really kind of look at it from a contextual standpoint of the why is this said and why are we following this, and knowing that prior to this version being written, there was no derogatory mention of psychics or mediums or anything in the Bible.
Hmm. So what do you think turns Christians away from what you do? Do you think it's the label, or maybe do you think it's like a case of just what you do being misunderstood? Um, what do you think it is that turns them off about it?
I think it's more one, I feel like there's more people now, when I came out, if you will, in 2018 as a psychic and a medium. there was a lot of backlash, right? Because people didn't understand, but also there was a lot of people calling saying, "Hey, I've always wanted to meet with the psychic, but this is what the church said. But you said you love God, so I'm going to trust this process, right?"
Yeah.
And people actually coming and getting the closure or the healing or the peace that they need around the passing of a loved one, right? When we talk about dealing with grief, and we talk about, what spirit has given me or shown me along the way, to tell people like, hey, death isn't a punishment, right? Death is an inevitability, because sometimes we feel like God is punishing us by taking our loved ones away. And so our loved ones are coming and saying like, no, that's not the case at all. This is what this is, right?
Hmm.
And so I do think that it is what people have been taught, so to speak, and people haven't done the work for themselves. And I would say like, the gifts predate language, right? So because before there was the term psychic or medium or prophet or any, the gifts existed because they're energetic gifts. So the energy existed before we began to put labels to them.
Hmm. You said you, um, so what you do incorporates aspects of African spirituality.
Mhm.
What are some practices that you incorporate from that into what you do now?
Just in terms of like honoring our ancestors, right?
Okay.
Honoring the people that came before us, the energies that came before us, and
Hmm.
incorporating them into my daily life. And so some people would say, oh, we shouldn't venerate the ancestors, but we venerate Jesus all the time, right? And Jesus is an ancestor, and Jesus is no longer here in the physical body, but we call on Jesus every single day.
Yeah. I do think, I mean, I'm not the most religious person, but I am very spiritual.
Yeah.
And I do think there is some hypocrisy to it just
Mhm. Oh,
because it's,
absolutely.
I feel like I've always felt like when I was younger, I would have to go to church with my grandmother, even though I
Yeah.
never really wanted to, but you don't tell your grandmother no. So
Yeah.
I would go to church with her and we would have the little crackers, which was like the flesh,
The
and then
communion, yeah, yeah,
yeah, the
yeah. And the
communion.
blood, yeah.
And as I got older and I really started to learn more about different forms of spirituality, I'm like, well, some people would probably consider that witchcraft, right?
Right. Yeah,
But
yeah.
Christians say, that's not the case. So I do think it's like you said, centuries worth of being told that
Absolutely.
this is what it is.
Yeah. And
And
not just
yeah,
told, right? We're talking about people who were literally beaten and maimed and hung and killed for trying to practice and trying to hold on to their beliefs,
yeah.
right? And so we literally, that's my little puppy in the background. We literally were like forced in a lot of ways to give up what was our own,
Well, yeah,
but we've always found ways to
get back to
keep it
it.
alone. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. How do you see psychic abilities evolving in this current age of technology? Like, what do you think the future is going to look like for it?
mm. I think more people will be, I think, okay, let me say this much. I think it will be more acceptable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because let me tell you something. All of these people, what people don't know, all of these celebrities, all of these politicians, they have readers, right? They have
Yeah,
advisors,
I
right?
agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's just not talked about, right? I
Mm-hmm.
have celebrity clients, right? I have political clients that I'll say, hey, this is what I'm seeing, and I'm not predicting the future, but I can, this gift allows me to see into particular timelines that say, hey, if we're on this timeline, then this is what this means. So
Mm-hmm.
Nancy Reagan had an astrologer, right? Nancy Reagan had a psychic who was helping her and her, because it said that she was really running the country, so
Yeah.
um that she had these people in her corner who were helping to advise her. So I believe that it's going to be more open. It's going to be more common, right? I believe that is what technology is doing. That people won't be afraid to say, "Hey, this is my psychic, or this is my reader, or this is my medium, right?
Hmm.
So I think that that's where it's evolving to.
Yeah, I was so this is something else that I was talking to the astrologer that was a guest on my show. I was saying that I feel like specifically we were talking about Beyonce and her
Okay.
career. And I
Yeah.
said I feel like Beyonce is probably one of those people that has like her own astrologer or like spiritual
Oh,
advisor, whatever you want to
absolutely.
call
Well,
it.
she says
Yeah.
it in one of her songs. I think it's
Yeah.
the song Virgo Groove, I believe it is, when she's like, a psychic said, I got some to do. Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, come on, B. Right.
But a lot of people say that because she's an entertainer, and because she sometimes, she has other writers on her song, people always say, "Oh, well, that doesn't mean that's her experience. It could just be something that she said in the song." But I think a lot of people are also just scared to confront that, maybe their favorite artist is interested in these things.
Yeah.
Because some
And
people still
again,
look
I
at it as
think,
a taboo. Yeah.
yeah. And I think as it evolves, um, it will be less taboo. Right. I do believe that it will be more mainstream, that people will be able to acknowledge these things. I think the same with, Beyonce kind of tapping into the African spirituality, where she's kind of dressing in the color of yellow, which represents Oshun, right? The
Hmm.
Orisha Oshun, and talking about these things in song. So I just believe that she's just a multi-dimensional um person. But I also feel like she's not gonna overwhelm us with it, right? If you want to know why she wears yellow, why she's doing, you're gonna have to go research it for yourself, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think a big part of that is also just her wanting to keep certain things sacred to her. Well,
yeah.
no pun intended, but
Ah,
wanting to
there
keep
you go.
things
I
sacred
see
to,
what you did there.
yeah, that's right. Wanting to keep certain things sacred to herself. It's like she'll give you a peek in through the curtain,
Yeah,
but you'll never know the full picture.
she's a
And all
Virgo through and through.
very mysterious. Yeah,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
true. Are you into astrology? Like what's your sign?
I am. I'm a Virgo.
Oh, you're Virgo.
Yeah, I'm a
Okay.
Virgo. Very much into astrology. Now I don't know all of like I know my moon and my rising and my sun
Okay.
sign and those things. And but and I actually just had an astrology reading like last week. But I'm telling this homegirl, she's like, and oh my gosh, when you see the squares, this is what this mean, and this conjuncts this
Yeah.
and that. And I'm like, girl, just am I gonna win the lottery next week? What's up?
No, yeah, like let's get to the good part. Yeah. No, it's
But
a
no, she's
whole
amazing.
study,
Yeah.
yeah, that
Yeah,
you
she's
really have
amazing.
to, yeah.
And that's just a gift in and of herself. Her name is Paula the astrologer. And just the way in which she understands all of these things and how they work and what they mean. It is phenomenal to me.
Yeah, it's definitely, I don't think people realize how much of a skill it is.
Yeah.
I think they think that it's just, oh, well, they just got that from the internet or they just read that somewhere and they just,
Yeah.
I don't think people realize how much energy you really have
Mhm.
to use to channel into those things. And yeah,
Yeah,
it's definitely a
absolutely.
skill. Not anybody could do it.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to your medium work.
Okay.
So you mainly help people process grief.
Mhm.
What is something that you have learned personally through helping other people when it comes to grief and loss and growing from those? I mean, I guess you never really. I don't know. Do you believe that people stop grieving? Do you think grief is something that just like starts and ends?
No, I don't. I don't think that people stop grieving. I think that people go through grief, right?
Yeah,
I don't think that they ever necessarily get over the loss of a loved one. I just think
yeah,
that they learn to either cope or handle things that help them live better, right? Because I always say, like, our loved ones don't want us to grieve themselves to death. That's not what they want, right? And there are some people who are literally grieving themselves to death um, because they don't know, right? And
yeah.
so then my job as a medium is to come in. It was so interesting. I had a group reading this past weekend with some young women. Maybe it was about maybe 10 or 15 of them, and they didn't know I was coming. So they were having their annual like thing, and one of the girls had booked me like a year ago. And so it was a surprise for them. And so I didn't know it at the time that they had lost a member, and she booked me because they were all coming to Atlanta for this event. And she never told me that they lost a member. I didn't know anything about it. And so I'm giving readings. And then I'm like, okay, there's a young woman who's coming through, and I'm like, she's like in the hospital, but she has a bunch of tubes in her, and they all instantly start tearing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I'm kind of laughing because I'm like, she's laughing, right? Spirit is laughing because Spirit is like, I said, I'm just going to tell you what she says, right? I'm like, she's like, y'all didn't think I was going to miss this party, right? And they all just fell
Mm-hmm.
out laughing because they were like, that is her, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so everything that I'm saying, they're cracking up because they're like, oh my gosh, like this is her. And that's exactly how she would say it. And these things. So, Spirit is communicating that even though I'm not here physically, I am always with you all spiritually, right? I'm not missing
Mm-hmm.
birthdays. I'm not missing weddings. I'm not missing children being born. And so it's kind of like, that is the one thing to say, like, no, they're always with us. Even when we can't necessarily feel the presence of spirit, has nothing to do with the energy. It's us, right? And sometimes grief gets in the way of us tapping into that energy.
Yeah. Because it's kind of like an emotional blockage
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
can be. Yeah. And so
So,
once people go ahead, I'm sorry.
oh no, 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 you can go.
No, no, go ahead. You can go. It's fine.
I was gonna ask, how has your journey with grief evolved with you helping people through grief, basically?
It's that's such a great question. I don't know if I've ever been asked that question before.
Because I mean, it's I don't think yeah, I don't really think, I mean, I always wonder, like, you are there to help guide those people through their grief, but it's like, who helps you, who guides you
Yeah.
through yours? Do you?
I think one particular thing is I think because I view grief in a very different way, because I'm like, no, I know they want us to continue living, right? So this is what spirit has
Mhm.
revealed to me. And then I'll circle back to that question as well. But one is that, like, we don't have to die to get to heaven, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of people are not going to experience heaven until they die. But heaven isn't a location. Like, heaven is a state of mind. Heaven is a consciousness. And what they want for us is to experience heaven in this physical consciousness that we exist in, right? They want us to
Mhm.
hear heaven, taste heaven, smell heaven. They want us to experience it in these physical bodies. That's essentially what we've come to do. And so they're saying, inevitably, we're all going to experience it when we're out of these physical bodies. There's nowhere else to go but heaven, right? There's
Mhm.
source energy, there's oneness. That's all there is when we leave these physical bodies. But they're saying, hey, you can actually experience it while you are here. Like, I feel like what I get to do, this is heaven,
Yeah.
right? Like, I get to wake up, I have my coffee, I take my dog for a walk. I may or may not go to the office that's around the corner that I'm paying for, that I should be in every day, right?
Yeah.
But because sometimes I just don't want to deal with Atlanta traffic. But I feel like
Yeah.
I have created heaven because this is the work that I was called to do. I believe that, right? This is what God has called me to do. And so because I'm walking in that unapologetically, this feels like heaven for me.
Mhm.
And so that is one of the things to say, like, yeah, spirit is saying, don't wait till you die to go to heaven, right? Like, create the life that you want that feels like heaven, whether that's your
Yeah.
relationship, your money, your career. What would heaven feel like on this job or in this relationship or on? And so when we talk about, like, what
Sorry,
is,
I just immediately thought of that song, Heaven is a Place on Earth. I'm like, maybe that's what
oh,
they
that's
meant.
so good. I just got chills. I just
Maybe,
got
yeah, I'm
chills.
literally, oh my God, I feel like I'm
Literally.
about to cry. Oh my God, I'm so
Yes.
sorry. I'm
No.
sorry.
I got chills. I literally got chills. So if I got chills, it's like spirit saying, like, yes, like
I'm
that is
sorry.
it.
I'm so sorry.
That is it. That is it. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
No, it's
Oh
okay.
my God.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to edit this out. Oh my God.
No, you leave it in there. You leave it in there because this is real. This is so real. But that is it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's exactly it. And that's what they want for us to experience. Whatever that looks like or feels like in your life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm
But
sorry.
oftentimes, no, you're perfectly fine. oftentimes, tell me what you're feeling right now.
Um, Overwhelmed.
Okay.
I don't
Talk to me
know.
about
It's
that.
kind of like I didn't think this would turn into a therapy session.
I'm a therapist, by the way, too. So go ahead. To my background, you're
um,
good.
I don't know. I think sometimes as people we're just very used to, well, I guess I can only really speak for myself, but I'm so used to like suppressing a lot of things
Okay.
because I just have to keep going.
Yeah.
And I feel like if I acknowledge everything I'm feeling, I won't be able to keep going. I'm just going to break down and then I'll just be like a shell of myself. So I
Mm,
think I suppress a lot so that I can keep moving forward.
yeah.
And then it's stuff like this where someone will say something or I'll hear something and then it just hits me and then I just get overwhelmed with emotion and it all comes
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that that gives way to really looking at how can I experience heaven while I'm here?
Hmm.
What does that look like? What do I need to give up? Who do I need to give up? Right? What do I need to return to? And is it going to be easy? No, in our humanity, probably not, right? Because our
Hmm.
ego gets in the way sometimes of saying, like,
Yeah.
but that's what our loved ones want us to know. Like, no, we want you all, we're rooting for you all to have this feeling while
Hmm.
you all are in these physical bodies.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I my mom lost her mom
Hmm.
um in the fall of last year, last August. And I never grieved. I never cried about it and I never
Hmm.
processed it. I just acted like it didn't happen because I'm like, I
Hmm.
have so much other things that I have to worry about. And I
Yeah.
know that if I give into my emotions, like I know how I can get. And I don't want
Mm.
to end up like in a depressive episode or something. So I just
Yes.
ignored it. I
Mm.
never, like, even now, it's like I know she's dead, but I've never
Yes.
really processed it.
Mm.
So I don't know. It probably could just be that too coming up.
Yeah, but I think also, I always say like there's no such thing as dead, right?
Mhm.
That all we are energy. Like eventually these physical bodies will die, yes, right?
Yeah.
But the energy of who we are, that's an eternal energy. Even the scripture says like God promises us eternal life, right? And so a part of
Mhm.
like I remember sitting in church, I was at a funeral, and I'm like, okay, God, like I know I got like 35 podcasts lined up, and I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
I'm just about to go out, right? I'm just about to just do this thing. And so I'm like, but you gotta give me the words to say to help people understand. And
Mhm.
so I hear clear as day, like I'm talking to you. I hear in my mind's eye, God says, like I promised my people eternal life.
Mhm.
How will they know that I've kept the promise if the medium doesn't demonstrate the gift? Right. And so the medium's job becomes to demonstrate the gift of eternal life. Because it's like things that will come up and people are like, whoa, wow. And I'm like, yeah, like even when we leave these physical bodies, there is eternal life, there's an eternity there. And this is what our loved ones are saying. But it's like
Yeah.
before you get here, experience all that there is to
To do.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like 2 weeks ago I went to Salem, Massachusetts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I've always wanted to go because I've just always been very like intrigued by like
Yeah.
occult stuff.
Yeah.
And I was just like ever since the pandemic, I was just like I don't want to not do everything that I could have done. Like
Yeah.
if something were to happen to me tomorrow or whenever,
Yeah.
I would like to know that I did as much stuff as I wanted to do
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And so I went to Salem and I I was like taking some pictures on film and I posted it on Instagram and that was essentially my caption. I was
Yeah.
like, I just want to be happy with what I've done because
Yeah.
I mean it's my life, it's my body, it's all I'm the only person I'm essentially really responsible for.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that I made the most of it while I was here, you know?
And that's what they want for us. That's what our
Yeah.
loved ones want. Make the most of every second of every minute of every hour that we're here and not to, because even the scripture says like none of us know the day or the hour. right? So we don't know
Hmm.
when it's all going to be over. So it's
Yeah.
like, no, like maximize the opportunities that you have.
Yeah. I was reading this thread on Reddit. It was like, I believe it was like in like the Christianity Reddit group.
Okay.
And there was someone who said that their father, his mom just passed away,
Mm.
and he was taking it really hard. And he was starting to resent God and resent
Mhm.
his spirituality.
Yeah.
And she didn't know how to steer him back in the right direction because she
Yeah.
feared that if she wasn't able to help him, that he wouldn't go to heaven, and she wants him to go to
Mm.
heaven.
Yeah.
And I think I also have a very unconventional perception of death and the afterlife and heaven and
Absolutely.
hell. But do you you believe, you obviously believe in heaven, but do you believe in hell, or do you believe that there's people that go to hell, or I don't know.
No, I don't believe in hell as a I don't believe in hell as and as in anyone will go there in the afterlife. I believe that
Mm,
hell is the lowest energy that one could experience in this in our physicality, right? In our
okay.
physical beings. And so I feel like when people say like I'm going through hell, it's because no, they
Hmm.
actually are, right? And so
Okay.
hell could look like depression. Hell could look like suicidal ideation. Hell could
Yeah.
look like those things. And so I don't believe that we have a being, a God, a consciousness that would doom us to eternal damnation. And there's just nothing in me that believes that.
Okay. So you're just, so basically everybody goes to heaven, is what you
Yeah,
believe.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because my thought is that people will say like, "What about this person? Or what about this person? What about?" And and my thought is that it is a we have to look at, I believe, the distinction between our humanity and our divinity, right? And or our spirit and soul versus our humanity. And so when we leave these physical bodies, we all return to oneness. We all return to source energy, right? That's what we are returning to. And there's no grading system when we leave these physical bodies. So there's really, and this is my own personal thought here, I don't believe that there's any amount of good or any amount of bad that you could do to not be able to return to oneness, right?
Hmm.
Now, and it's because I feel like whatever people are doing in this life, if you are not, if you're doing people harm, there's some sense of hell that you will experience, or some sense
Yeah.
of hell that you are experiencing, and able to, there's some people, yeah, they have a depraved mind, right? And they will experience some sense of hell. I just don't believe that it will be in eternity.
Hmm. Um, when I was reading that, I kind of felt bad because it never occurred to me to that would be a worry that I have. Like I never thought, damn, like what if my mom doesn't go to heaven? Like that was never a thought of mine. But then I started feeling bad because I'm like, is it bad that I don't care? Like essentially, not that
Mhm.
I don't care where she goes, but I feel like at the end of the day, we're all in control of our lives, and whatever we do in this
Yeah,
life, we'll have to answer to someone or something in
yeah,
the afterlife for everything that we've done in the
yeah,
physical plane.
yeah,
And I think that whatever, that is none of my business. And whatever I
yeah,
go through is essentially none of anyone's business. So it's like,
yeah,
so I'm like, I never really thought like, damn, like what if my mom doesn't get into heaven? Because I'm just like,
yeah.
that's something that
I
I
just I
feel
don't think
like,
that that's a possibility. That's my thought,
mm,
right? Even
yeah,
like when Jesus says like in my father's house there, or in my father's kingdom there are many mansions, right? What it really is saying that there are many dimensions, right, to the
okay,
afterlife. But I don't believe that any of those dimensions are hell. And in
okay,
fact, if one would even research the word hell, or where that word comes from, it is really a word that is based on, and I want to get this right here. I think the word is shoal, Shoel, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember, but it's like this was something that was like when people died. Okay, if you had money, you could be buried in like a mausoleum or like, you know what I mean, a
Yeah.
concrete tomb or whatever. But if you didn't have money, right, they just dig up your body and they put you in the ground.
Hmm.
Well, if you got rotting flesh, right, like a few feet deep in the ground, then what's going to happen, right? Animals are going to come and animals are going to dig it up and animals are going to be like tearing at the flesh of it, right? And so it's like, yeah. So even in that, it's just like, yeah, if you're poor, you go to hell, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like you didn't have the money for anything else. And so I don't know. It's just kind of like a thought that speaks to like, I don't know, like just inequity in so many ways in terms of making people believe a thing.
So okay, so kind of like classism in a way.
Yeah, yeah,
Kind of, yeah.
absolutely. That's like in this time, it's like people believed because you didn't have the money to be buried that you were doomed to hell because you couldn't get a proper burial.
Mm,
Versus if you had money, then you went to heaven because nothing would happen to your body in the quote unquote afterlife, you know?
yeah. I think you said something earlier where you were talking about heaven or the afterlife, and I think you said something about like a grading system. Did I make that
Yeah, I
up or
don't
did
think
you?
that there's a
Yeah.
grading system to, yeah.
That reminds me, there's a show called The Good Place. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
ever seen it.
Yeah.
It's on Netflix. You should
Okay.
absolutely watch it. It's
Okay.
5 seasons, but it's so good. And it's
Yeah.
basically about all these people, these group of people that die, and they're basically in limbo. So they're not in the bad
Mm.
place and they're not in the good place, but they want to
Yeah.
get to the good place. So they're in
Yeah.
this medium where they're basically learning how to get to the good place. But while they're
Mm.
there, they're learning that it's more nuanced than that. It's not just
Yeah.
a case of being good or being bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, just made me think about it. But it's more complex than what people I think let on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. Moving on. I want to talk about how you've been able to empower women through spiritual development. How do you personally feel that you have been empowered through your gifts?
Mm. I think for me, it is really kind of understanding purpose, right? And that we are all here for a divine purpose and really doing what it takes to get in alignment with the divine assignment, right, on my life. And doing so unapologetically, right? Doing so
Mhm.
despite backlash, doing so, what people have to say or doubters or skeptics. Like, I don't care about any of that, right? Like, I'm so clear on this is why I'm here and this is what I'm supposed to do because I see the results of the work every day, right?
Mhm.
Like, as a pastor, we know that you can go to church and that'll help you with your grief. As a, background being in therapy, we know you can go to therapy and that will help you with your grief. But I have seen, working with people with this gift within one session, like mind blowing just because grandma came through and said this, right? Or
Mhm.
dad came through and said this, or there was closure here. And I had a young lady tell me, she gets on the line. I always tell people when we do these readings, I allow spirit to go first, right? I don't allow questions first, but I allow spirit to, because a lot of times your questions are going to be answered. And this is how you know that spirit is listening. And so this young woman gets on the phone, I give her my spiel, and I tell, I don't talk to the dead. There's no such thing as dead. All we are energy. We're energy before we enter these bodies, while we're in them, and when we depart from them. This gift just allows me to be able to tap into that energy. I tell them I don't have any control over who comes through, right? But chances are, if it's someone that you're hoping to hear from, that is usually who does come through. And I tell them spirit communicates with me through signs and symbols, numbers, whatever it is that spirit gives me. I tell them what those signs and symbols have come to me, and we will make sense of the message that we are getting. So when I get on the phone with this woman, I said, hey, your father's on the other side and he wants to come through. And she's like, okay. And I was like, the first thing is he's offering an apology, right? And she
Mhm.
immediately starts crying. And I said, okay, he's showing me that like you were an outside child, right? That your mother was like a mistress and that, but it was a very open secret in the church, right? So I'm just telling her everything that he's saying. And, she says at the end, she says, I've been in therapy for 20 years, right? She's like, I don't even feel like I need to go back to therapy. She's like, because all I wanted was an apology. And
Mm,
that was something that, like, she's like, I could not have gotten an apology without this, you
mm-hmm.
know? And so I've seen people find their healing, right? Or get their healing. And so I don't call myself a healer. I call myself an agent of healing, because I believe that healing is up to us. And so I found that people will contact me and they'll book a session and they will get healing for themselves. And so that for me is to say, I'm very clear on what God sent me here to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to not do it because someone else feels away or somebody else thinks this. Like, y'all got to reconcile that for yourselves. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
am, assigned to whomever I'm assigned to. And so I feel like that in and of itself is very empowering for people to see. So I've seen other women get empowered because they're like, oh wow, like, yeah, you're doing this and you're not backing down, and so they find empowerment for themselves in that.
Yeah. That when you said you're channeling, well, when you said you can't control who comes through,
Yeah.
I always wondered if this was just like in TV and films or if this happened in real life. But was there ever an instance where I've seen like in horror movies where they'll have like a sidekick or a medium, and then maybe the person that comes or the entity that comes through isn't the most positive, or it's like a or demonic entity or something. Is that something that only happens in movies, or does it
I think
actually
so.
happen?
I think
Okay.
from my experience, I don't watch horror films at all. Never have ever since I was a kid.
Okay.
But I don't know what other people's experiences are, right?
Hmm.
I always say that I'm only equipped to deal with the light. So
Hmm.
I don't know, does darkness exist? I'm sure, but I'm just not equipped to deal with that. So when I'm channeling, it is, and it doesn't matter. A lot of times, spirit will come through and apologize, right? Because they can see it from an almost like I call it an aerial view, right? To see, wow, like this is the pain that I've caused, and I want to make this right,
Yeah.
well, excuse me, why I have this person sitting here, and being able to communicate with them. And so I don't necessarily believe like I've never channeled anything that felt negative or felt like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be doing this. You know what I mean? That's
Hmm.
that's never been my experience.
And what does like, so how do you, what does a typical session look like? So how do you prep for it? And what does like aftercare look like? Do you
Yeah.
like, how do you get yourself mentally and spiritually,
Yeah.
juiced up, I guess, for lack of a better word, to
Yeah,
do
no,
these
I
things?
got you.
Because, it can take a toll on you. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, typically I think like spirit is like very respectful, right? In terms of, I get up in the morning, I do my, my prayer, my meditation, my shower, I might twerk a little bit, whatever the case, whatever the day is calling for, right?
Yeah.
And so then, as I might be drinking my coffee, I may start to hear certain things, right? And so I kind of have like I have notebooks all over the house. So like on Saturday morning, I knew that I was going to be doing a group reading. And this typically happens a lot when I'm going to be with a lot of people. So I write down, someone just lost a mom, right, recently. I write down the name David. I write down Mexican food, loved Mexican food, and house burning or something like that. And I explain to them, hey, this is what happens, right? I'm usually going about my day. Spirit may give me something and I'll write it down because I know that I'm going to be delivering a message to someone.
Hmm.
I get to the place again. This is with the women who have no idea that a medium is coming to speak with them, and I'm, telling them how things work. And I'm just like, okay, like first we're going to start with someone's mother who just recently passed. So this is the mother or the mother-like figure, and this young woman raises her hand. She says her mom passed, a grandmother who raised her like a mom passed a couple of months ago, and I am like, okay, she's acknowledging that the brother or for you, who would have been the uncle for her is also there. She says, yes. I said, who is David? She says, that is him. I'm like,
Okay.
okay. So it's like I'm checking things off the list. And I'm like,
Okay.
yeah, this is what spirit is giving me. So that's just kind of like my typical day. I usually will read from like noon till about 4, maybe do about 6 or 7, maybe 8 sessions in a day. But they're all
Mm.
kind of like anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. So it's not a lot of time, but it's always kind of giving people, it's like I'll give a reading and people, I'll be like, are there any questions? And they're like, not a one, right? Because like
Hmm.
all of them have been answered, if you will. And so then it's just like, I may do some admin work, take the puppy for a walk, maybe go out to dinner. But always taking care of like my mind. So I'm, listening to good music, reading good books. Laughter is the most important thing. Like,
Yeah.
having friends over, going over to friend's house. We had a pizza
Hmm.
party last week with my friends, and we are going to laugh uncontrollably, right? So
Hmm.
all of these things like restore me
Hmm.
and give me,
How?
go ahead.
Oh, no, no, no. Keep going. It was just a intrusive thought. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Right, go ahead. No, I love intrusive
I
thoughts.
was
Go
gonna
ahead.
ask how you feel about have you ever partook in like psychedelics or any kind of those?
No, I am too
No.
afraid to. Yeah, I don't even
Okay,
know.
yeah.
It's like my mind is already on 100. So
Yeah.
I can't,
A natural
I think that
psychedelic.
I can't even imagine, right? I hear
Yeah.
people talk about like the benefits of like ayahuasca and stuff, and I'm just like,
Mm.
I don't really know.
Yeah.
Like,
Mm. Yeah, no, 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 of
yeah,
course. I know
yeah,
just for some people it kind of helps them connect with themselves better. But yeah, everyone's different. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's almost like a thing. Like, I'm like, I don't want to chance it. Like, I don't, some people like they're, like you said, they really need to have something to connect to, if that makes sense, right? Or have something, a way in which to connect. I think that because it's like by default, this is kind of the thing that I do. I don't think it's
Hmm.
anything else that I don't think I need to add anything to it. Like, but I will say, like, when I am, working out and I'm eating the best that I can eat, and I'm like I feel like the channeling is on 100. I think like
Hmm.
most days it's probably 90, but it gets better when I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. So you're
Yeah.
basically high off life. It's just the best drug.
I am,
Yeah.
and I think because being a medium, you see how fragile it is, right? How fragile the time is, how we really may or may not have the time that we think we have, right? And
Yeah.
how people will lose loved ones suddenly, right? It's like, you are, communicating with someone and they're on their way home from work and they don't make it home.
Yeah.
And so all of these different experiences and working with people really allow me to kind of see like, no, like there's a fragility to the physical life that we really should not take for granted, and that we
Hmm.
should really kind of make the most of it. So yeah, I don't like do negativity. Like I just like to have a good time.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
just do you. Yeah, just do you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we are winding down towards the end of the episode, and usually at the end
Okay.
of the episode, I like to do a segment called What Grinds Your Gears? And it's where my guest and I talk about something that grinds our gears. It could be anything, doesn't have to be related to your career or anything. So is there anything that you have on your mind right now where you're just like, I've
What
been wanting to talk about
grinds
this?
let's see here. What grinds my gears? Oh, this is good. Um, I don't know. I gotta think about it. You go first. I don't know. I
Okay,
gotta think about
so
it.
for me,
Uh-huh.
this is something that I've been thinking about a lot this week, especially with the election around the corner.
Yeah.
Um, I always say this. I say I don't mind teaching the youth. I don't
Okay.
mind teaching a child, but I can't find it in me to teach an adult. And for me, I just feel like as adults, we have way more autonomy, way more
Mm,
resources than children. So that
yeah.
means we have the means to do better and be better. So if
Mm,
you are an adult and you have the means to do these things and you're just not, I
yeah.
can't help you because that just means that you just don't want to do it. So you stay over there and I stay over here. But I had this person in my life that I recently had to cut off last night because I realized that while she is a really sweet person and she was like a mom and she seemed like a really good mom, our political differences were just too
Mm,
much for me to ignore.
yeah.
And she's just a little too conservative for
Mm,
me.
yeah.
And there was a point in time during like our little because I broke up with her over text, which I guess was I don't know if that was bad or good, but I told her like, I don't think this is gonna work. Like, you're a really cool person, but I just think we're too different.
Mm,
And she was like, well, how are you ever gonna grow or learn if you don't want to be around different people? And for a second, she almost got me. And I was really
yeah.
thinking like, damn, like, am I being too close-minded?
Yeah.
But I feel like it's okay to have clear boundaries and it's okay
Mm,
to have standards. And if someone doesn't meet that, I don't think that makes you closed off or
yeah.
ignorant. It just means that you guys just don't align. And I just think me and her don't align. But she was
Mm,
definitely trying to like guilt me into,
yeah.
thinking that I was making the
Sounds
wrong
a little like
decision.
gaslighting.
Yeah, gaslighting basically.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
just like, no, like I just can't because I just feel like your politics are a big part of who you are, your morals, your beliefs, your values
Yeah. Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
person. And I would hate to like bring you around my friends or bring you around my family and this is the way you think because we don't think
Yeah.
like that. We don't.
Mm, yeah.
So we were just two different people.
I got you. I got you.
So that's something that grinds my gears is
Yeah.
ignorant adults,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. I think in the vein of the election and the politics, I would have to say watching I know this might be like really random, but like whenever I'm watching like CNN or something like that,
Hmm.
and they're asking questions and someone doesn't answer the question. And
Mm.
I am like, I could not be a reporter. I'd be like, no, 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 that's not what I asked you. That's not what I
Right.
said.
Do
That's
I need to
dumb.
repeat the question? Yeah.
I think with that, I'm like, they totally let them get away with not answering the
Hmm.
question. So I think
They do
like
that
that
a
is,
lot during the debates, the
yeah,
presidential
no, they
debates.
do. They do.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, they didn't answer. Am I
They
the only
didn't
one
answer.
that heard that they
Yep.
didn't answer the question? So
Hmm.
I think that that's probably something that more than anything these days that grinds my gears.
Hmm. But it's definitely intentional. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're just trying to,
Yeah.
skirt around it.
Like and I tell people like I don't like to make like those type of predictions on things, right? But I
Hmm.
can see like I can definitely see into two different timelines that speak to
Hmm.
if this candidate wins, then even from a spiritual perspective, it's almost as if like we're on the right track in the right timing, right? So when Eckhart Tolle writes his book A New Earth, we are right around the time for experiencing, like we talked about, like a heaven on earth, right? Where we're getting to a place in our humanity where we can see everyone's divinity,
Hmm.
right? Like that is really, kind of like why we are here. But if the other candidate wins, then I feel like we get there. We just get there in a much difficult fashion.
Yeah. Just take the longer
We,
route.
we will take the longer, harder,
Yeah.
not so scenic route.
Hmm.
And I feel like we've already been given a glimpse of that, right? Like the universe is like, yo, like I gave y'all a glimpse of 4 years of what this would look
What this
like,
could be. Yeah.
right? And
Hmm.
that the fact that this oh, I got chills. This candidacy ended with a worldwide pandemic.
Yeah.
Like I thought the
That's not a
universe was like,
coincidence, I don't think.
yeah, like what y'all think is happening here, right? And so y'all want to do
Yeah.
another 4 years of that, you know? But
I
I just,
mean, yeah,
yeah,
history, and this is essentially why history ends up repeating itself because the people in power don't learn. They
yeah.
never learn.
And the people who are disempowered don't learn.
Yeah, that too.
If people
Um,
are saying I'm voting for this candidate because they gave me a $1,200 check, and I'm
check.
like,
Is that
is that
all it takes?
because
You
technically
know?
that person did not give you a $1,200 check.
Yeah.
However,
Hmm.
um, and I'll say this. It's when we talk about being agents of healing, the time is now, right? The time is now. Like there's no more we're hiding in the background, we're ducking and diving, we're doing like no, the time is now to be very open with these gifts and very unapologetic with these gifts and guiding people with the downloads that we're being given. Because
Hmm.
it never ceases to amaze me. Like someone will come to me and I will say X, Y, and Z, and they'll be like, wow, like I saw another reader last week and they said the exact same thing, right? And I always find it
Hmm.
funny because I'm like, yeah, no, like we're all reading the same energy. And so I
Yeah.
love when someone says, like, yeah, this is exactly what you said. Like, this is the name they use or the term they use. And so it
Hmm.
gives them great confirmation too.
Yeah. And it means that we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
which is good.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like, I mean, well, you're the sidekick, so you might know more than me, but do you ever feel like we're on the brink of something, but just not sure what?
Oh, I do. I absolutely do. And I believe that, I think when I talk about Jesus, right, I always say like Jesus didn't come here to start a religion. That's not what Jesus was trying to do, right? I believe that Jesus was coming to teach us how to walk the fine line between our humanity and our divinity, right?
Hmm.
And how to experience our divinity within our humanity. That is why we are here. How can I experience God while I'm in this physical body? How do I tap into uh my expanded consciousness while I'm in this physical body? How do I experience heaven while I'm in this physical body? That is what
Hmm.
I believe that Jesus was coming to earth, or came to earth, much like other teachers as well, right? To teach us. And so I feel like we are at a place where we are going, like I said, either we're going to do it the easy way or we're going to do it the hard way,
Hard way, yeah.
but we are really going to be able to see and feel and experience the divinity of one another, right?
Hmm.
While we're in this humanity. Because if we do, there's no separation between God and us, right? Or source in us, or source energy. There's no separation. There's only the lie that it was sold that there's a separation. And the experiment, or the experience that we get to embark upon while we're here, is to remember that, right? And to
Hmm.
activate that, and to relearn that, so that we can experience God in these physical bodies. And when we do, right, for as much as we say we love God, we love the universe, we love, then there's, if I see that in you, there's no way I would want to harm you. I would
Hmm.
want what's best for you, right? As much as I would want what's best for myself. And so I feel like even the rift between your friend and yourself is what you were hearing her say is, because you're voting for this person, or because you feel this, then you don't really care for my humanity,
Yeah,
you
that's,
know?
yeah.
And that is the revelation. That's the kind of the hard part, right? When we look at, I think that this boils down to which candidate is the best for humanity, not
Hmm.
just the best for the country, but the best for humanity, for where we are, right?
Yeah.
This person said that climate change was a hoax, and
Hmm.
now we're seeing.
Hurricane after
You
natural
understand?
disaster.
Like
Yeah.
I grew up in New Orleans. Having a tornado in New Orleans was unheard of.
Hmm.
But now it's our house got hit by one.
Mm.
So excuse me, it's not an uncommon thing anymore. Hurricanes in Georgia, tornadoes in Atlanta used to be a very rare thing.
Yeah, very rare. Yeah.
So now we're seeing these things hit very close to home. And it's very scary when the people who have an opportunity to do something about it aren't doing
Aren't
anything
doing
about it.
it. Yeah.
And
But
they're entertaining. Mhm.
I also think this is I think that's a sign that now more than ever we should really be investing in community.
Yeah, yeah,
Because if the higher ups aren't going to do what they're supposed to do, then that really only leaves us. So then we
yeah,
got to do what we're supposed to do. Yeah.
yeah. I believe that the revolution will be leaderless, is what I say. There won't be a leader to the revolution, right? Like
Yeah.
it'll be something I imagine that it's like when we talk about being online, right? That no, it's not an internet thing, right? Like you're gonna have to be tapped in to understand what's going on, right? To be able to
Hmm.
communicate, right? And this could be like, I don't know, way far down the line, but that is what I kind of envision. Like when we talk about, yeah, you're gonna have to be online, like not on the phones, not because that's gonna not exist, right? In a particular way, but no, you're gonna need to be tapped in.
Yeah. Definitely gonna have to be
And it's so
tapped
it's
in.
so funny because I even find my mom, she's so funny. She's like, I have your gift. I'm like, of course you have my gift, mom, because I came from you. So I'm pretty sure. Like,
Yeah.
and so, but I'm seeing her be like, to like activate it more and more, like, or us kind of communicating without talking on the phone.
Hmm.
So she'll be like, think something or say something, and I'll call her, and then we've been like, she's like, oh my god, like da da da.
Hmm.
So teaching people even how to tap into that, because that's going to be a very necessary skill.
Yeah. My mom does that. So my mom is Jamaican, my family's Jamaican.
Okay.
And so it's kind of like a common thing in West Indian culture where it's like one of those superstitions where it's like if your air is ringing, so like if you
Yeah,
can
it
notice
was
ringing
just doing that
sound, it
before we
means
got
that
off the. Yeah, before we
someone,
got on the call.
somebody's calling your name, somebody's trying to get your attention.
Yeah, yeah,
So sometimes sometimes her ear will start ringing and then I'll end up calling her and she's like, "Oh, it was
yeah.
you," or yeah, stuff like that.
I love that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it.
Um, I really enjoyed this sit down. I really enjoyed talking to you. I
Thank you.
love
Same here.
your insight and I love what you do and I respect what you do. Do you have any parting words for the people before we leave?
Any parting words? That's so good. Um, Really, I think just for people to understand, like, the time is now, right? To one, begin to create your own heaven on earth, right? Which is a collective thing, I believe, right? So it's not necessarily just our own personal heavens on earth,
Heaven.
but
Yeah.
yeah, create heaven on earth. And I believe that the way in which we do that is by using our own divinely, anointed and appointed gifts that we've been given.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah.
Um, well, thank you again.
You're so
This
welcome.
whole episode, oh my God, I don't know how I'm gonna watch this over. Because I have to edit this and oh God.
Yeah.
But thank you again. Thank you for taking the time out to speak with me. I know you have a lot going on, you're very busy, so I really appreciate you finding the time
Thank you
to
for having me.
come on.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's just Lakara with the gift on all platforms. That's Lakara with the gift.